feminine in one minute and masculine in the next, and dangerous and tender and soft. So I was like, that can be pretty cool. To be able to play a character that really had no definable boundaries. He just moves wherever you want to move in that moment that somebody moved him, or he moved himself. So yeah.
I have to ask the panel too before I get to the next question. This show, this series, is re-entering the zeitgeist at a time when we know that vampires are very hot. There's a movie coming out this fall called Twilight, and there's obviously a lot of anticipation for that as well. The comparisons will be inevitable between the vampires, between our female. Is that a mix? There's a mixed bag to that? Is it all good? There's room for all vampires? I mean, how do you feel about that? Yes.
I think there's room for everything. I'm a Buddhist, so I believe that there's room for everything in the world. And I don't feel any sort of sense of competition or anything like that with any other show, with any other network, with any other writer. I think there's room. The universe is boundless, and there's room for everything.
Charlaine?
I was scared you were going to ask me. Everything Alan said, with the addendum that if it came to a Cullen family Fantasia staff smackdown, I think the Fantasia staff would win.
Nice.
Next question.
Quick tangent. Question for Anna. Any update on Margaret?
No. Do you have one for me?
My question is, because it is partly, sorry, I'm a little taller than the guy. Because it is, I'm just a small girl. Because the piece is partly a period piece, because it begins before Katrina and continues after Katrina. How are you dealing with the inevitability that the story is both pre and post Katrina? Have you started filming in the New Orleans area, or are you going to get into the post Katrina-ish stuff?
We just start the show post Katrina.
So there's no...
There's a mention of Katrina in the pilot about it having happened, but there's just, I mean, I just felt like there would be no way for us to recreate it, and I don't know what would be gained by doing that. We just picked it up after Katrina had already happened, and when we hit book 5, we'll figure out a way to address that.
Hi, this question is for the entire cast. I just wanted to know if any of you guys have read the books, the whole series, or have you been trying to stay on track with the series to make sure you don't give anything away or change your character in a way that it doesn't change until later in the series? Because I know some of you guys get some pretty surprising things happening to you. So have you guys been keeping up with the series or staying in one place?
I've read some, not all of them, because by the point that we started shooting at, and then we went to series, and with the number of actual scripts for our show, it's kind of a lot of reading material right there. But I think as far as reading ahead and what free time we do have, I find it really helpful, because those are things that obviously, if you were actually that character, you would know them about yourself. And it's kind of amazing when there is source material that you can go to, so that you can play things or adding things to your character that maybe the audience isn't going to know about for 4 seasons, but that you obviously would be aware of as that person. And I think it's really great and really helpful.
Alan, do you want them to read ahead? I mean, what if they come and say, hey, look, she does this here? I mean, do you want them to know that much ahead?
Well,
I'm asking Alan, does he want you to read that far ahead?
I'm actually respectful of every actor's process. I don't mind if they read ahead. If they choose not to, I respect that as well. I haven't had a point where somebody came in and said, look, she does this here, because I think we're sticking so close to the story that I don't think there are any big surprises like that. And if anybody were to come to me with something like that from book 4 or 5, I'd say, well, slow down. That's going to be 4 or 5 years from now, so we don't need to discuss that right now, I think.
Actually, we introduced this a little bit with Quinn. You suggested there may be the possibility of that. What about werewolves? Will there be a possibility of that maybe in the first 2 seasons? And the Maenads, too. Were they introduced in the first book or the second book?
The Maenad appears in the second book, but she appears at the very end of the first season, so we can set that story up. Definitely werewolves exist in the world. We have not seen them in the first season, but I believe Sookie becomes aware of their existence in book 2. Is it book 2?
I think so.
And so they will definitely make an appearance, as will all of the other supernatural creatures that are in the books. They'll show up as they show up in the storyline in the books.
More question?
Yeah, this is a question for Alan Ball. And by the way, it's a great honor to be in your presence. I think American Beauty is the finest film ever made. That's why I'm a writer. I had a question of, was it difficult for you to approach genre storytelling, or was that something that was very natural for you to do, coming from a place of American Beauty of 6 Feet Under, and this is something that brings in elements that are even more supernatural than anything in those?
You know, it wasn't difficult, and I think there are 2 reasons for that. One was that Charlaine had done such an amazing job of weaving those elements into the story that when I read the stories, I was so taken with the characters and was able to put myself inside the skin of the characters. So it didn't strike me as being that different, because I felt like all the characters had very real wants and desires and complications, and that I could really relate to. Another thing that made it simple is, after 5 years of 6 Feet Under, I was really tired of people talking about their problems and worrying about what their lives meant and everything, and dealing with the fact that we all die and blah, blah, blah. So I wanted to do something fun, and this was something I came across that was incredibly fun. So far, it hasn't been difficult for me at all. It's been actually, I gotta say, I've had more fun working on this series than I've had doing anything else in my career. So,
Thank you so much, the cast and creators of True Blood.